Welcome into Philadelphia Box PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon or Cole, whatever you want to refer to me as. No big deal. In a good way. Don't care. Rat, pig, horse, cow, lizard, dinosaur, hippo, dog. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words shall never hurt me. And of course, words do hurt people in general, but I was tortured so badly that they kind of don't. So finally, I get to say it just rolls off my back, like the water on a duck. So anyway, here we are on day 127 of my one video each day, 365 days of trying to raise money for a life lost, stolen, robbed, tortured, raped. Due to severe extreme harassment, which can include people coming and going from your life for various reasons, just to play the game, and many other things. So I'll start with my usual shtick, which is the fourth Monday of January 2011. I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment. It was really bad. I was shaking, convulsing, couldn't even hold my phone. Turns out when you're scared, SHITLESS, your entire body goes limp, muscles fall limp. I couldn't use my voice for a minute or two. I don't know how long. Finally, I called my sister. I just knew I was on top of my bed, standing there. I had one cat remaining of 3 cats that I'd had leading up to that. Sometimes I wonder, it's so bad that I wondered if the natural world killed off, I started to wonder, because I'm like, people took care of my cats when I went away leading up to this, and or did they poison one of my cats? I started to wonder all kinds of things. But anyway, it was really bad. The thing is, I was afraid to be laughed out of a police station with trying to describe everything that happened, because I'm so used to people being like, oh my God, she totally believes that. Oh my God, she totally believes it. What if it actually did happen to you? So, and nobody believed you, and they just laughed you out of the room, and rolled their eyes like, are you kidding? Happens to people all the time, turns out. So anyway, I was made to believe I'd be murdered by a series of events, a whole atmosphere, a white idling van, all kinds of things were put into place to make me jump out of my bed in the middle of the night, wondering, is someone coming in through the basement to come up and I actually believed, I 100% believed it would be the last night of my life. Called my sister, then the cops. The next day, called my mom and aunt. They were living together. I didn't call them in the middle of the night, which was really, we'll say 3 o'clock-ish in the morning, 3:30, because they were older. I didn't want to bother them. But when I finally did get a hold of them, we're sorry, the phone number you're trying to reach has been disconnected, which played all into the horror film or whatever these people were trying to create. It's almost like someone who has special abilities and money and can get away with things in plain sight and do it upon someone who doesn't really have much power other than hopefully over my own life. But in general, I'm not well connected. I don't have tons of people out there who I could call up and say, this is what happened, get on it, and I want $5 million immediately, So I had no idea what to do. I'm just a regular person. Technically, I do think my case is worth in the millions of dollars at this point. I am so not kidding how bad this was. So anyway, it was kind of like a movie. If that weren't enough with this sort of thing created to make me believe I'd be murdered in my apartment, the games commenced after that, and I had met some people leading up to this. I was sort of in this phase of trying to grow my network, and I wanted to bond with more people or participate in things. So I was participating in dragon boat racing with the LGBT community, Team Philadelphia, a volunteer group, the Sapphire Fund, a volunteer group. I was running with the gay running group. I'd met people along the way, and a couple of those turned out to be clients. They wound up hiring me to check in on their dogs and cats when they would go away with their partners or to visit family or what have you. So I was building my network, and I finally felt like I had a niche in society, if you will. But when I reached out to these people who I recently met, they behaved in ways that weren't exactly expected. One would hope that when you reach out to friends, they would say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Do you want to hang out here? Do you want to eat dinner? You can stay over here a couple nights if you want. I had sort of this mixed, odd response. I did beg one other person to stay at her place, and I did stay at her place for 2 or 3 nights. My brain got messed up there because I tried to map out each night. And there's a night I think I only stayed there 2 nights. I was trying to figure out how long it took before I begged my mom to come up to Philadelphia. So it's like, where was I and when? My sister came up for a night, then I took her back. Then for 2 or 3 nights, I stayed at someone who I considered a friend back then named Sarah in West Philly. And then my mom came up, but I would not stay in my apartment by myself until, my mom came up, stayed for about a week, and then it would technically it was about 10-ish or more days, maybe 14 days. It was about 14 days before I actually stayed in my apartment again by myself, um, since that night. So I was scared big time, and I didn't trust the police when they showed up. Not that I didn't trust them, it's just they didn't really do anything. They acted like they showed up the night that I called, before I tried to call my mom. So the night that everything happened, I finally called them. They showed up and kind of, they're like, well, the van up here, they thought it belonged to UPenn. I don't think so. I think, I don't know what transpired, but there was a van idling outside my apartment at 3:30 in the morning, and I don't think it was a van to pick up faculty at night or people who work odd hours or what have you. It wasn't marked as UPenn, as I recall. There were no passenger windows. It was strictly just the driver, the front seat stuff going on. If it were there to pick people up, you would have like passenger seats and stuff. Um, Anyway, long story short, the games commenced and a lot of things happened, including there were a couple blackouts. So one would occur in my like on the block that I lived, there was an entire blackout. And it happened to be right around the time when I reached out to my sister and was talking to her, and the lights went out while I was on the phone with her. And I think her boyfriend of many years and the father of her third child happened to be visiting her that day. So anyway, but this ties into, I was hired by some people who lived on Bread Street down in Olde City by Betsy Ross House, and also Real World Philly from MTV was filmed in that thing that looks like a bank kind of across from Starbucks down on Arch Street, right around 3rd and Arch or so. Anyway, I wound up doing overnights for clients on Bread Street, which is a little bit, it's like half a block east of that Real World Philadelphia old location. And while I was there, they lived in a complex that has like a courtyard in the middle. So it's like a whole bunch of these unusual apartments slash 2-story condo, townhome-ish apartments. It's hard to describe. They're very unusual in the sense that it felt like these big open space rooms, and then it was a 2-story situation, and it felt echoey, and it almost felt like movie set-ish. It felt TV set-ish, because it's like, wow, it's really echoey, and there's a lot. It's just this big open space. Plop some furniture in here really quick. It was in that realm. So there was an evening when I was staying the night at this home. It was like, 133 South Bread. I should know it by heart. I can picture it, and of course, there's 33s in there. So anyway, they were one of the doors on at the exterior of 133 South Bread Street, and they used to have a lot of plants in front of their place. So anyway, and inside they had a coffee table thing that was really like a chest or there's another word for it, but it was made out of airplane material. So you've seen that sort of furniture that has that shiny airplane metal all bolted together. They had that as their coffee table, which might have opened up for storage. So anyway, I noticed that as well because it was like airplane-ish. And also one of the guys, I think, used to DJ because they had a little room. They had a couple rooms upstairs, and in the smaller room was a DJ table and stuff like that. So, but anyway, and the other guy was a coder. So, like a serious coder, and the other partner had lived in many different places. I feel like he was born in California, lived in New York, wound up in Philadelphia. He could be like in Michigan these days. I have no idea, or Ohio or what have you. So anyway, all that's coming through. I'm being very specific, I guess, for reasons. So anyway, 133 South Bread, and in their home was a bathroom in the master bedroom per se. And when I went in there, I noticed that there were these hanging upside down dried flowers, yellow flower, mostly yellowish in nature, upside down hanging, for some reason it took me aback because it was like, oh, it was like a memory flash because before I moved to Philadelphia, I lived with my mom, and at times my sister and either one of her two kids, like her son, for a while we were all kind of crammed into an apartment down at 1422 Elkway in Bear, Delaware, as Fox Run Apartments. Um, and I remember coming. I had started writing at the time, and I was doing like writing reviews for local musicians for what was it called? Big Shout magazine. And I had gone out to a place called Deer Park. I think it was the after that I'd gone to a place called Deer Park. Deer Park just came up recently, but anyway, Deer Park Tavern. I don't know if it's still there at the end of Main Street in Newark. This is so many years ago. This would be like the mid to late 90s. And the next day I come out and there's this little shoebox, but it was a little one. It was like an abbreviated shoebox, like for kids, but not quite adult, but not totally kids, but it was a shortish shoebox. And I was like, all right, this is sitting here. I opened it up and it had all these it had like dead yellow flowers in it. And for some reason it struck me as odd. And I thought, did somebody leave this as trash or it fell out of their trash? We had a neighbor who worked like at a chemical company like Dow or whatever in Delaware. And I don't think it would have been his, like left behind, like, as if he took out his trash and somehow I felt like someone placed it there on purpose and almost felt like hex-like, but I quickly like filed it away for later and just like let it go. But I remember when I saw these dried yellow flowers hanging from this couple's, and this would be a gay couple, in Olde City, when I saw that, whatever it is, decor hanging from their shower, it kind of like made me remember this. So there I was taking care of their dogs, and they had like 2 or 3 dogs at the time. And I remember they had 2 main dogs, a cat, and then I feel like they brought in a third one, but I can't remember exactly when they brought in this extra dog. But anyway, so kind of getting ready for the night, and all of a sudden, blackout. The entire block from Arch to Race, and potentially from 3rd to 2nd, like 2nd to 3, whatever that block is, complete blackout. And all of a sudden, you can hear like people coming out of their homes. You know how it gets really quiet. And for some reason, it triggered because of the dried yellow flowers and because I was constantly traumatized. So while I was trying to make a living, things were going on constantly. And this would be a biggie. It would be like a repeat of the 2011 event in a way, because I was so scared. And because the apartment condo situation was so echoey, dark, and big, I was like, what if someone actually does come in here to murder me? I'm constantly being threatened with murder in one way or another. And it can either be through actual actions like a blackout or scaring me out of my apartment, or it could be through little things, little messaging systems here in Philadelphia. And it's like, okay, like, I just want to have a normal life. Like, I actually don't go out of my way to think this way. Think events are actually orchestrated to create these fears. Now, I don't know if they knew. I think I told them later, like, oh, by the way, there was a blackout. I just played it like they wouldn't know. I have no idea if they would know that this was coming, like a blackout on their street. Anyway, called my sister in a panic again. I keep calling my sister whenever there's something like this happens, because I don't know who else really to call. And I don't want to bother. These days I can't call my mom and dad because they're both passed away, but or an aunt or a stepmom or whatever. But in the past, I wouldn't want to burden them that much, only when it was absolutely necessary. In the middle of the night, called my sister. I decided to open up the window because I knew people were outside on the street. I kind of like sat a little bit like on the edge of the windowsill and opened the window a little bit to feel safe. I was on the 2nd floor. I was afraid to go down to the 1st floor because it was so pitch black and dark. And the dogs were they freaked out a little bit, but they were okay. They stayed on the bed. The bed was near the windows. So we just sort of hunkered down, and I called my sister. But even they were freaked out, like but it helped me to hear people outside. My sister talked to me for a while, and eventually, I can't remember, it was a long time before the lights came back on, But I do know that the yellow flowers played into this whole scenario of everything going on. Like, what's up with dried yellow flowers? Did someone like place some sort of, was it an omen or a hex? Or, omen would have been the word that I thought of at my mom's apartment when I saw this shoebox outside in the walkway. And these were exterior doors, so you didn't go into the apartment she lived in had stairs exteriorly and your own door to the outside. So you didn't go like in a hallway and then find your door. Like here, you'd come inside. And they were somewhat new-ish, modern-ish for the area at the time in the 90s. I think she wound up moving into these apartments around 1988, 89-ish. So she knew that after I turned 18, she would sell the house and move on. Sort of, she almost kind of promised it in a way. It was part of a divorce agreement, kind of. And myself and my sister and herself to remain as stable as possible since our dad, left and then he remarried. And there was a lot. So that's how it all unfolded. But she made kind of a promise that she would sell the house when I was 18 and then, but see how she had to downgrade. Anyway, we won't get into it, but how much effort have certain entities put into trying to take people down? And I do feel like there was an uptick or there were little signals or omens and people keep trying to scare Sharon. It is a never ending issue. Unless an orchestrated community were to come in and try to create like fake enough of a situation to prevent the worst of them from coming back in. And there's no way they can control that if that were the case. But point being, I'm agitated always. I want to be happy and fun, but things are happening all the time. And in the city, it's so big. There are people playing a game. I don't know if they think it's world takeover. And these would be people from all walks of life. So it's not like you can look at one thing and say, oh, finally the tables are turning, like a racial issue or whatever. It's not that. These are people from all walks of life. I don't know if they believe in DNA issues or like yesterday, there was the king's coronation. I don't know if there are people who sort of really hold fast to this like idea of monarchy, royalty, bloodlines, and stuff like that. And of course, bloodlines play into conspiracy. Where do you come from? Where do we come from? This, that, and the other. So I don't know what to say. But I have no idea wherever my ancestors came from, most of them are from humble-ish beginnings and like people have had to sort of like inch up here, there, and spread out. It's, not overly fabulous. And people have been around so long that I don't even think you can trace the lineage back. Obviously it would go over to, England-ish. So technically we would be in that realm of Old English, Scottish-ish. But there's such a mix that you can't, So anyway, that doesn't matter. But point being, other than the argument that there were little kickoffs here and there as time went on. So it's almost like people who wanted to pounce years ago and sort of won a little victory, they'll keep trying little victories here and there and here and there. And the new millennium sort of ushered in this new idea, I guess. And I wonder if people felt victorious in a way of sort of like pushing people in certain directions. And, if you're not couched by a lot of support, other people can try desperately to like steer, we're going to steer her this way. We're going to that way we will take advantage of all this while she's trying to heal from all the wounds that we inflicted. So anyway, it's interesting that other people know that they inflicted a lot of pain. They know it. And this is going back many, many years. And somehow, if you decide to distance yourself from the pain, you look like the villain, right? So if I say, I'm going to go over here, then everyone, Sharon, distance herself. Sharon, she put us in the doghouse. No, you guys did stuff that made me want to go over here. So I'm thinking personally there are people who know that they did things that will freak people out. That causes someone like a natural born child to seek out family or support elsewhere. What happens to the family that's still in place, non-biological or otherwise? They start reaping the rewards of, say, the provider or what have you, while the person who's over here, like, I guess I'll find a home in the LGBT community, in the gay community, because I never feel validated, or I always feel like a loser or whatever. And that could be part of the game. That is a strategy. That is a strategy. Other people inflict pain, and then they blame their victims for writing them off. Even though I never really totally wrote people off, but I did kind of distanced for self-preservation. But it works in their behalf monetarily in the end. So everybody can do the math. So that's it. Day 127. What's up with dried yellow flowers showing up in front of my mom's apartment where I happened to be living at the time. And I think my sister and her oldest son were there as well. And my mom. And then again, near the Betsy Ross House, 133 South Bread Street, where the plants, used to be. I don't know if they're still there. It's been a while. And the dried yellow flowers in the shower, and the entire blackout of that entire massive, massive block. That's a lot of people and a lot of units and a lot of, it's a lot of blackouts, not just like half a sliver of a block or one complex. It's that entire massive block blacked out. Coincidentally, while I was doing overnights, which wasn't that often. So I didn't do overnights all the time. Winky wink. When I do overnights, the entire everything goes off. There were generators to light the street lamps. So luckily street lamps came on so that there was some light coming in from outside. But that's a way to scare someone, isn't it? Okay, I'm tired of being scared by stupid people. Okay, thank you so much. I hope you guys get stuck.